For joining us for this next session. I lobbied Simeon very hard so I can have everyone adequately caffeinated for this segment. So thank you. What I didn't think is the factor of folks coming back in. It is a great pleasure to introduce this panel today on critical raw materials for the net zero transition. With us today, we have the pleasure of having three types of stakeholders joining us. The first one, Mr. Dionysios Gouris, traveling from Greece, who heads the Greek government's geological survey. And with us, of course, George Christidis, a legend in the nuclear industry, not just in Canada, but abroad. He's with the Ontario Power Generation Authority and with the Canadian Nuclear Association. There was logic behind the composition of this panel. First, we start with the end users of critical raw materials. In this case, renewable energy or net zero carbon-free energy, specifically the case of nuclear. Of course, then government, in the case of geological surveys, and we don't expect that everybody knows what a geological survey of a government does, but what they do is that they are the first ones to go and screen for early geological data that then is offered for free and openly and transparently to the market, where investors and geologists or folks from the academic sector do further research and then develop business cases that eventually, many years if not decades later, become operating mines. And yours truly from the folks in between, which is folks that mine, process, and then manufacture specialty materials. Thank you very much for joining us. Both. Let me start with you first, George. Canada has a legacy in nuclear power, both production and technology development. Can you tell us more about Canada's legacy in that?
Yes. So, can you hear me? It's not sure if this works. Hello? Test. This one works. So again, σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ for the opportunity. Thank you very much. And I appreciate the question. Yes, Canada's had a long legacy with nuclear technology. It's based on the CANDU legacy, CANDU supply chain, CANDU technology that sort of started off the process. And we've seen that really grow here in Canada, where a very substantive part of the supply chain and the Canadian nuclear capability is really focused in Ontario, but also involves the province of Saskatchewan and New Brunswick. And based on that foundation and based on the recent successes that particularly Ontario Power Generation and Bruce Power have had in refurbishing their nuclear fleets in Ontario, which represent about $26 billion worth of investments in projects that are critical infrastructure that are on time and on budget, that has laid the foundation for a lot of international interest in terms of Canada, in terms of how those projects have proceeded on time, on budget, and laid the foundation for new technological evolutions and opportunities associated with small modular reactors. And that is increasingly becoming the interest in a lot of different new nuclear markets, is really understanding how small modular reactors could provide solutions for energy security, climate goals, on-grid, but also off-grid situations. And Canada is really very well placed, Ontario particularly is very well placed to lead that discussion and those opportunities.
And George, thank you so much for that. And, looking back to 5 years ago, at least when I got in this business of critical minerals, you looked at the Maslow pyramid, and I just made this up, but the Maslow pyramid of government priorities, and critical minerals were not up there. And 5 years later, we're close to competing for the same attention as AI and crypto, which I think says something. And the way that this ties is that these critical raw materials, say for example the case of rare earths and the rare earth magnets that you make, they are energy-saving magnets, where you put 1 to 2 kilograms of a magnet of these critical raw materials in the motor of an electric vehicle, and you save 20 to 30% of the battery size of an electric vehicle, which is an order of magnitude more of weight while achieving the same range. Or the case of lithium, nickel, cobalt, manganese, and graphite for batteries. In the case of nuclear, it's uranium, and we'll get to that. But before, it all starts from stuff coming out of the ground. So tell us more about how this came to attention, things like the EU Critical Raw Materials Act and Greece's role in this.
Yeah, first of all, let me thank you for the kind invitation. It's great to be among you and visit this beautiful country and beautiful city. We have a new target. A new target that we have is the net zero. To achieve the net zero, we have to do a technological leap. We have to change the way we're living. We have to change the whole world. Right now, the microphone that I hold has 6 different minerals: gold, silver, nickel, copper, rare elements, and lithium. 4 of them are critical. Imagine now how much many minerals and the quantities that we need to achieve the net zero, to achieve the Green Deal, the transition of energy. This is what made the European Union to release a new act, the CRM Act, the Critical Raw Material Act, that will try to secure our supply chains and will increase our independence. The Critical Raw Material Act, the CRM Act, has 4 main targets. Target number 1, extraction. 10% of the overall European Union consumption in critical raw materials has to be achieved inside the boundaries of European Union. Second, processing. 40% of the annual consumption of European Union in critical raw materials should happen inside Europe. Third, recycling. 15% of our annual production should come from recycling. And the fourth, and one of the most difficult targets, not a single third-party country should provide the European Union more than 65% of our annual production. That means China. So all these targets are quite difficult to be achieved in the next 5 years because we have to do it in 2030, but it's our obligation to try. And European Union has made clear that this is a strategical point of view. We have to submit strategic projects. I think last month 170 strategic projects have been submitted for all over Europe, and 3 of them were from Greece. It was Metlen who submitted 3 of them. And hopefully we will manage to achieve those goals, and Greece will be able to help significantly towards this direction, and I will have the pleasure to tell you more later on.
Thank you so much, Dionysian. For the benefit of the audience, or for those that weren't here a year ago when we were having a similar discussion, this is now the 3.0 version of this discussion. The good thing is that every year there's something new, including, compared to a year ago, the ratification of the EU Critical Raw Materials Act, as Dionysios was saying. And for the folks that maybe weren't here a year ago, the reason that this is a thing and it has become a big deal in Europe and North America, in the Western liberal order, for lack of a better geographic term, is because there are certain jurisdictions like China, mostly China, that have very high concentration of these supply chains, whether it's mining, whether it's processing, whether it's downstream specialty material. Of critical raw materials for the net zero transition. And as the jurisdictions in Europe or North America are trying to reshore or establish these supply chains, the business case is just not there. And so you either needed a lot of subsidies, which up until a couple years ago were a miasma. When globalization was still cool and industrial policy was a miasma, so were subsidies. Now they're coming back into trend. But additionally, and this is what makes Europe different, is regulation. It's probably the strongest muscle of Europe in lack of a large budget. It only has 1/30 of the budget of the US federal government. And so what he did, and what the EU Critical Raw Materials Act is about, is that it developed targets. And with that, businesses now, such as the 170-something strategic projects that are being pursued in Europe, are able to have a de-risked market case because there's a minimum demand that will come domestically from Europe for European and allied producers. And so in the case of nuclear energy, the obvious critical raw material is uranium. In some more exotic cases, but only a couple of reactors online, thorium nuclear reactors too, but it's mostly uranium. Can you tell us more about Canada's role, not only in nuclear technology, as you were telling us earlier, George, and power generation, but also the critical raw material, uranium?
Yeah, and thank you for the question. So indeed, part of Canada's leadership is, as you pointed out, not only the technology side and the supply chain associated with that, but also the uranium and its associated supply side as well. So in Canada, companies like Cameco, for example, based in Saskatchewan, are like number one, if not number two, in the world generation of uranium. And in the geopolitical context, we're seeing a lot more interest in Canadian natural resources, including uranium, to offset maybe dependency on other countries such as Russia in this sort of very politically sensitive environment. I need to also maybe just flag to you part of the connection with the minerals side or the mining side is we're also seeing as the technologies evolve in nuclear is not just about the large reactors or the small reactors, and small reactors are defined about 300 megawatts, for example. We're also talking about very, very small reactors, 50 megawatts and the like, which are starting to become of interest in the natural resource development sectors. So in the Canadian context, you have Canadian companies in Alberta or Saskatchewan and other spaces that are in the mining sector, that are in the resource development sector. They're starting to take a look at how they could reduce emissions, have a guaranteed supply of clean energy or non-emitting electricity as a way in their own industrial processes. And those are also starting to emerge in conversations in industrial parks. So you can imagine that in not only in sort of the large nuclear space, but the small and very small, countries like Greece should start to think about a multi-technology approach. There's been a lot of positive developments in Greece in terms of its energy policy, the move towards renewables. But as the country grows, as more demand for electricity exists and development in terms of the resource development sector and other sectors like shipping, whatever, it has to be a little bit open to the concepts that there are other technologies that could be on the menu for its own consideration. And it's really up to Greece to decide what's right for itself. But where we're coming from, we're seeing an evolution, a very strong international trend, whether it's Eastern Europe, whether it's the Balkans, whether it's in Asia, in Africa, where they're starting to take a look at these technologies, both again from the large perspective, but also the small perspective. And Canadian uranium is being really looked at as a source in a global market.
Thank you, George. And I'm pretty excited about maybe a next chapter of this conversation where we can investigate more Greece's appetite and maybe potential pathway to adopting and deploying maybe small modular nuclear reactors. But before we get there, let's start first with what critical raw materials for the net zero transition are currently being extracted in Greece. The two obvious cases, and we've heard it this year from Metlen Mytilineos. We heard it last year at the same panel from George Burns, the CEO of Eldorado Gold. In their case, in Eldorado, obviously they're mining for gold, but a major byproduct is copper, which is a critical raw material for electrification and grids. And in the case of Metlen, obviously the bauxite mining, conversion to alumina, and then aluminum. What is that contribution of Greece? Do you see it being appreciated in Europe? Do you see international supply chains turning to Greece more and more?
Yeah, Greece has some important deposits on critical raw materials. As you correctly said, two of the biggest players in the market right now is Metlen, which has the largest deposits of bauxite in Europe right now. And hopefully by changing their processing cycle, they will manage to produce also gallium, which is in the critical raw materials lists. And on the other hand, we have Eldorado Gold and Hellas Gold, the Greek company who exploits one of the biggest deposits of copper and gold in Europe. All these, both those deposits are quite significant for Greece, but we also have other stuff. I have to mention to nickel, and because I can see that Minister Papathanasis is here, that this government has made a huge effort to try and make to find a viable and trustworthy investor to make LARCO work again, to have quite significant deposits of nickel that can help us to do the transition, the energy transition, and work towards the net zero. But I would like to point out two new opportunities. Opportunity number one, antimony. Antimony is a critical raw material, and it's not produced anywhere in Greece, in Europe. There is no extraction of antimony in Europe. We are almost 95% dependent from China, and there is a small mining procedure in Turkey. Right now, in the northern part of Chios, we have found deposits of antimony, and in collaboration with the Ministry of Energy and Environment, until the end of this year, we are expecting to have a new bidding process, so an investor will have the rights to do more specific research and then create a new mining procedure in exploiting the antimony deposits. We also have done this procedure in the southern part of Greece in Molaus, where we have a significant deposit of zinc. But the company who took the rights to do the exploration on this mining area, public mining area, they found something else. They found germanium. Back in the 70s, when my institution did the search in this area, we found the deposits of zinc, but back then we didn't know about germanium. So now we have deposits of germanium in Molaus, and hopefully they will be able to be also processed and move forward to creation of a new area, of a new mining area. At the same time, last year, the end of December, we finished our feasibility report and our mineralogical report in Kimeria. Kimeria is a small village in the north part of Greece, close to Xanthi, where we have an important deposit of copper. So hopefully the next 2 or 3 years we will have a lot of activity in bidding processes from the responsible ministry. It's not an easy process because we have to raise public awareness, we have to answer the problems that the communities have about this type of activities. But we're getting there, and I'm hoping that we will be able to have new deposits, because our strategy is to reinvestigate all deposits of strategical raw materials in terms of critical raw materials. So we have public mining areas where we have found copper, we have found gold, but we know that using new technologies, going deeper, going to more specific scientific way, we will manage to increase our deposits in critical raw materials.
Thank you, Dionisi. And, it's a rare occasion where someone from the private sector says that, we got it wrong, the government got it right. But here we are back in July at a meeting with Minister Zdoku. I had a heated debate with the minister and her colleagues and your colleagues, Dionysios, arguing that antimony is useless. There's a regulatory trend for, irrelevant reasons, and so antimony is being substituted and replaced. And they were like, no, your intelligence is wrong. So we had that heated debate. It was heated by Canadian standards. And then lo and behold, a month later, the government of China announced an export control and ban of antimony. And so in full shame, I reached back. And it comes to show, though, that the Greek government and Greece that does not have the longest and largest history and legacy in mining, there are resources that are being allocated now on the subject, and especially on critical minerals. The intelligence that the government is getting on these things and its pursuit of trying to be part of these critical supply chains is meaningful, it's serious, and it's consequential. In the case of gallium that was mentioned earlier, gallium, there's no primary gallium like production outside of China right now. And there's only 1 or 2 sites where there is primary germanium production outside of China. The reason is that gallium is a byproduct from bauxite to alumina conversion. It comes out of the Bayer liquor for all the chemistry enthusiasts. And in the case of germanium, it's again a byproduct of zinc, which is the case of Morlaus that was mentioned. And so Greece has this opportunity of capturing these byproduct benefits from mining, from recycling, from tailing ponds. In the case of Larco that was mentioned earlier, it pains me. Larco has been mostly unpopular over the years in Greece, but Larco 2 or 3 years ago during the energy crisis, when electricity prices were rocket high in Europe, was the last operating and only operating nickel smelter in Europe. And it pains me that nobody raised attention to that. There was no media coverage on it. We weren't congratulated in Europe for fighting to keep Larco open and complete the privatization process. So Greece, I think, has some successes, and we need to do our parts in recognizing them. So in the spirit of that, and what I hope, but that is nothing more than my personal agenda, will be a success of small modular nuclear reactors in Greece. George, what do you think is the acceptance of both the Greek governments and the Greek electorates? Because the Greek government's position is essentially an extension of the electorates on nuclear energy right now.
Well, I don't want to pretend I know 100% where Greece is at, right? I've had some good conversations with the Greek government. I've had some very good conversations with the embassy. I've had very good conversations with the universities, some of the think tanks that we had the discussion just earlier. So I've gotten a good flavor. And quite frankly, with the organizers here, wonderful opportunities to attend Delphi, Athens Energy Summit, where again, I had an opportunity to hear from Greek energy users, producers, the industry. So I got a flavor for where Greece is at. But I can't speak to where they are to accept or not. But I can speak to the Canadian story, and I can speak to where nuclear is going. Nuclear technologies are increasingly being put on the table as part of the menu to address energy security and climate goals. Full stop. You're seeing an evolution in Europe on taxonomy. You're seeing the creation of new nuclear markets in Eastern Europe, the Baltics, the Balkans, the Middle East, Asia, Latin America. There's some, Jamaica starting to show interest. So, and it's all around the need for a lot more energy. And that demand for energy isn't just linked with the climate agenda. It's also linked with economic growth, shifting the economies, for example, data centers and other things that will demand. And people have concerns about data centers. That's another discussion. It's not really my mandate, but how does jobs get sustained? What does it mean for society? But the point is, all these economic activities are going to need a lot more energy. Therefore, nuclear technologies, large or small, are increasingly being looked at. And I think it's in that spirit that Greece needs to kind of understand, what does this mean for itself? Because around its neighborhood, it's happening. You have Turkey developing a nuclear program. Bulgaria has one. Other Balkan countries like Serbia are starting to show a little bit of interest. Eastern Europe, we know Romania, for example, long can-do history there. So it should be part of the conversation. There's legitimate questions with regards to safety, regulations, nuclear waste, but I'd offer up Canada as an example of how this is all being addressed. We are a tier 1 nuclear country. The success story here in Ontario is sort of world class and beyond. Saskatchewan with uranium mining. New Brunswick has got its own nuclear program. And we have had these conversations. We continue to have conversations. So when you talk about social license, it doesn't stop. It's not a start and then the project is approved and then it stops. It's an ongoing process. So the work that's done here, for example, Ontario Power Generation or Bruce Power or Cameco in mining is an ongoing conversation with local communities. And in some cases, here in the Canadian context, Indigenous communities. So it has another dimension, First Nations, Indigenous communities. So I'd offer up that Canada has a model on social license and discourse It has a model in terms of technology, supply chain, and pointed to a success where how all these conversations can occur on an ongoing basis, right? That ultimately improves the lives of citizens. What are we talking about here? We're not just talking about building nuclear plants for the sake of nuclear plants. What we're talking about in Greece terms, and I'll lean in a little bit, is about a safe, reliable electricity sources to back up the economic engines of those islands. You know, people look at those islands and they think of the beaches and the sun. It's beautiful. We all do that. They are multi-billion-euro machines. Do you really want to risk the energy reliability of those machines? Meaning tourism wants air conditioning. They have hotels. They have whatever they might need, the infrastructure. So at what point does Greece need to make sure there's resiliency and energy security from that lens? Not only the geopolitical. The geopolitical is now, who knows how it goes, that's not my mandate, but energy security from a perspective of reliable electricity for the economy to continue to grow, create jobs across different sectors. And Greece, having gone through the economic crisis, has an opportunity here to kind of lean in. New technologies, new ways of doing things, resource development. So these are the questions that Greece needs to kind of speak to on its own. So from our view, though, here to help in terms of sharing our story, which is a successful story here in Canada.
Thank you, George. And, but we're... Yes, Ambassador, please.
Only a good one. Only a good comment. Here.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Christidis, for your comments. It's really interesting, and we've been talking a number of times on this matter, and I have to tell people here that Greece, of course, so far is negative to nuclear power. We don't like it. Why? Because we are a seismogenic country. We are afraid of earthquakes, and we are very worried about waste. What to do with waste? That's an issue which is not solved. And on top of that is an accident fear, is a war fear. So there are many worries that makes Greece be a country that is totally negative to nuclear power. However, as very recently our Prime Minister said, renewables are not able to cover the gap. We have been following a green energy policy along with the European Union, and we are taking a number of measures to be neutral by 2050. Already, more than 50% of our electricity is produced via renewables. We have plans like the islands that you mentioned. We have the GR Eco Islands, the Greco Islands initiative, which makes small and remote islands in Greece to be sustainable in energy, in cyclical economy, in waste, in all kinds of these aspects of environment protection. Having said that, our Prime Minister recently said that perhaps we have to reconsider the nuclear issue into our mixture to be sustainable in energy. And that is, I believe, that statement is an indication that Greece can start thinking. Greece can start talking about that. Not that Greece will decide very shortly, but being open to a discussion, that is where your job starts. And I would appreciate it if you just collaborate with me and try to find ways to go to Greece, talk to people, and try to find, through your experience, if there are ways to tackle all these matters that worries us, especially the waste, the accidents, and all these other matters that I mentioned before. But there is a window now that opens towards this discussion. And I think it's interesting because Canada is in this fantastic situation to produce these SMRs and to be able to cooperate with us on that. Because if we ever go to nuclear energy, we're only going to talk about those SMRs and nothing, conventional, huge nuclear plant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And to bridge between what the Ambassador and George was saying, as an industrial consumer of energy, industry cannot just accept easily any kind of power. It needs baseload energy. And there are only 4 types of baseload energy. There is coal, which I think for obvious climate change reasons we're trying to phase out. There's natural gas, which is an intermediate transition fuel. There's hydro, which you have to be geographically blessed and lucky to be able to develop it, like Ontario, or Quebec, or Latvia. And finally, there's nuclear. And here's what's at risk. Here's the opportunity cost if we don't develop the critical raw materials and then have nuclear production, nuclear power production in Greece. What is at risk is this. I'm going to touch on something that George said, data centers. Microsoft, one of the flagship investments of Greece in the last few years was that one of Microsoft. In fact, the president of Microsoft Europe, Brad Smith, wrote a book a year later, or around that period, and he was highlighting the story of how easy and great and fantastic it was to build an AI at the time, a big data center in Greece. And so one wonders, why haven't all these other companies come into Greece and build more data centers? And the thresholds, the challenge that was realized was the availability of baseload energy. This is what's at risk. What's at risk is Greece missing this opportunity, whether it's for AI servers, whether capacity, whether it's for production and manufacturing of green technologies. This is what is at risk. And so I wanted to highlight that. I believe we're way out of time and I'm getting angry looks, but a final quick comment from Dionysi. Does Greece have what it takes to become a leader in mining for critical raw materials?
Yes, we do. We have the people. We have highly qualified experts in this kind of activities. And it is self-proved by how the big 2 companies I just mentioned before are working in Greece. They operate in Greece, and they are reliable. They are relying on the expertise that the Greeks have on this area. We have the willingness, and the government has stated that they're going to support, even with funding, this type of activities, and try to find benefits to de-risk first, initially the research procedure, which is not easily funded by banks. What we're trying to do is, I want to mention that the social acceptance, the social licensing is an everyday battle. We have to talk with the people, try to explain them the benefits, the problems, and that's the first time I say that in public. Tomorrow, a public campaign will start in Kimeria and Xanthi, where we're going to ask all the people there, not all the people, a great sample of the people, what is worrying them in case that we're going to develop a new mining activity. We want to know what people think, what's their worries, what troubles them before we start doing anything there. Because it's proven that as more you talk with the people, you explain to them, you hear them, you try to understand their worries, at the end of the day, you will manage to break through all the resistance and create something which will benefit the country and the people. And that's why we also did a strategic move to create the National Geological Museum of Greece, because we want to teach young people from the early stage of their life how important minerals are in our life, in everyday life, daily life, and try to educate people.
Well, nope. George, did you?
Yeah, and I just wanted to, again, thank you very much, and, thank the ambassador, and, the opportunity here to just remember, like, from our perspective, Greece has a lot of friends. And, you heard from the Premier, you're going to hear from Minister Lecce, who's a real strong advocate for the energy sector here in Ontario. You have friends in Saskatchewan, where I come from. You have friends in New Brunswick. We have friends that can share knowledge, and help to inform that conversation that Greece itself will lead and do on its own. It's just, we're there for you. We're there for you to provide information in terms of our experience. And on issues like waste, and on issues on regulatory, and issues on university linkages, capacity building, all those areas, we're there. We're there as a resource for you, and you have a lot of friends in Ontario, Canada, to bring that to your discussion. So I thank you for the opportunity.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. With that, I would like to invite Giorgos Mylonas, the CEO and President of Alumil Group, and Angelos Tsakoumis for a conversation.
Go ahead, guys. Thanks, first of all, Vasilios, for the introduction. And from raw materials to products that are made from the raw materials. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Economic Forum if you're just joining us. My name is Angelos Tsakoumis, and I'm honored to be here today as one of the newest members of the THI board. I am a founding member of EPTA Development Corp., a real estate development company based in BC, which I run alongside my two brothers, a family business. Like many of, excuse me, like many of you here today, I also have a deep desire to help in any way I can to boost Greece's economic prosperity through an increased global acceptance of Greece's offerings. With that being said, I have the honor of introducing today George Mylonas, CEO of the Alumil Group of companies based in Greece. Over the course of 30 years, Alumil has taken a Hellenic-based industrial enterprise and enlarged it into a global footprint with over 3,000 employees deploying building envelope expertise and products worldwide. What makes this introduction particularly special for me is that both George and I come from family-owned businesses. While my brothers and I are rooted in real estate development, building projects in Canada, the UK, and the US, George and his family have focused on creating world-class aluminum products that shape the structures that we rely on today. Under George's leadership, Alumil has maintained its dedication to family values, sustainability, and technology advancements, making it a trusted name in the industry worldwide. Today, as we sit down together, I'm excited to explore the insights and values that drive his company and discuss what the future holds for Alumil. So let's get started. Please give a warm welcome to George Mylonas. George, come on up. While George is getting settled in one of those seats there, if we could draw your attention to the screens behind us, we've got a short video that gives a high-level perspective of Alumil and its accomplishments over the last 30 years. Go ahead, guys.
We are driven by our passion to achieve the impossible, transforming nature's elements into materials, employing human ingenuity to find solutions, applying science and technology to create new architectural systems. Products that reflect our mission to improve people's lives and contribute in achieving their aspirations, to offer design of captivating aesthetics, to provide security, high performance, sound insulation, and energy efficiency. to create products of incomparable quality that take into consideration the ease of use, to provide aluminium systems trusted by millions of people from all over the world, designed and developed by our R&D department. A team of highly skilled engineers who strive for technical solutions and innovative products that are tested by worldwide renowned institutes. With more than 30 years of experience, we are one of the most advanced companies in the world, owning state-of-the-art production lines in 6 countries. High vertical integration is a key element to our success. From the foundry to surface finishes, our deep knowledge of aluminium and our ability to control all the production processes from the very beginning to the end ensures excellent quality control. In close collaboration with renowned institutions, we make sure that we keep our promise for top-of-the-line aluminium systems, ensuring that our advanced international logistics center and our warehouses across the globe provide the best services to our business partners and our consumers, so that our products can be monitored as they travel in more than 60 countries and safely reach and be a part of several major and renowned projects all around the world. But despite our success, we never lose sight of what really matters: the future. That is why the circular economy and sustainability are the core of our business. Reduce, reuse, and recycle materials and elements is a priority for Alumil, because the future is shaped by our values. Values shared by all talented people who made Alumil what it is today. A company that creates exceptional aluminium systems. A company with passion for building excellence.
In a world confronted by climate change, our stance is resolute. Our direction is clear. Presenting Loop 80, a game changer in sustainable architecture. Loop 80 is among the few certified recycled aluminum options worldwide for architectural profiles. How did we reach this pinnacle? Through strategic investment in cutting-edge recycling technology. This decision earned us the OK Recycled certification by TÜV Austria, a manifestation of our commitment to sustainable aluminum production. Loop 80 is more than just a product. It is a symbol of environmental responsibility. Choosing Loop 80 means that you make a conscious decision to preserve the environment and natural resources. Loop 80 by Alumil. We innovate to protect our planet for generations to come.
Okay, impressive video. So George Kalosirtis, welcome to Canada. Nice to see you here. Before we jump into some questions, I was just telling George, and I thought I'd relay that to you as well here in the crowd. One of those projects that was in the video is a project that's close to where I have my offices in downtown Vancouver. And as I drive to my office every day, it couldn't make me more proud to see the Alumil name, a Greek company, flashing in front of everyone's eyes as we drive through the downtown core. So congratulations for what you guys have accomplished so far. Perhaps we can get started by having you give the audience a little background on how the Mylonas family became industrialists in the true sense of the word in Greece, because I know, as we talked before, your family was in the real estate business before.
Yes, exactly. But I would like to say before that, that was an answer to how much nuclear power we need. We try to eliminate the need for energy with our systems. So the family, yes, it was in the construction business, and back in the 60s in Greece, we started producing the metal. Now it's Metlin. At that time it was Pechiney. So everybody started using aluminium. Aluminium was a very nice solution for construction. My father liked the idea, so he said, let's produce it. And that's how we got in the business with the production of aluminium profiles in the beginning. Of course, that was very simple at that time. Now it's much more complicated and sophisticated because we are in this sector, but now, let's say what we do, we just improve people's lives. So aluminum, you know, it's just a tool. And I will explain.
That's great. Greece has obviously had its economic peaks and valleys, like every other country. If you look back, what was some of the challenges that you've faced over the last 30 years in taking your company where it is today?
I mean, after the Lehman Brothers worldwide crisis, in Greece things went much worse because we were not expecting that. So we were a happy nation, spending too much without producing too much. So the government, the state was bankrupt, the banks was bankrupt, not, let's say, officially, but that was the reality. And what was the result for the business? There was no banking system for financing the businesses. There was no construction. We are talking about 95% elimination of what was construction. The same problems was also in other areas where Alumil was very strong, like the Southeast Europe, the Balkan areas. And in 2015, as some of you probably remember, it was the capital control. So I couldn't get more than 20 euros from the bank, and I couldn't pay my suppliers. We buy aluminum from all over the world. It was a disaster, a very difficult situation, not only for Alumil, for everybody, but for Alumil as a multinational company. This affected not only what was happening in Greece, but affected what my company was doing in India, or what we were doing in Indonesia, or what we were doing in the US. So it was tough times.
So with that being the case, and we obviously saw that from afar, did you take that as an opportunity to expand your business outside of the Greek boundaries more so?
I mean, this crisis in Greece, of course, triggered when you need to survive, then you do extreme things, okay? But before that, I'll tell you, for us, the expansion abroad was very easy. What? For two reasons. The one is funny. We were doing a lot of exports in the Arab world at that time. And Greece was the biggest supplier of aluminium for these Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, all these, Qatar. Why? Because these guys was coming to Greece very often for the bouzouki music. Yes, so we are taking them out in Athens, they are spending some time, and before they go, they put the orders. And that was not for me, for all the Greek aluminium producers. So that was the first initiative for export. The second one is, after 1991-92, that the countries, the ex-USSR countries or the East European countries opened their borders. You know, in all these countries they were Greeks. Because of our civil war with the communists, in all these countries they were communists. Yes, but brothers and sisters was in Greece, was there. So within 6 months, we created a network of salespeople in all these countries, from Uzbekistan to Russia to Kaliningrad to everywhere. And this helped us go very fast. And of course, to support all these, we had to make huge investments in the beginning in Greece. And then we started investing also in these countries that made Alumil, from that time, being 90% export-oriented. When this calmed down, we start exporting more and more in Europe. And when the crisis hit, we said, okay, guys, now where? Where shall we go? We have to go to more advanced markets where its predictability is a little bit better. So we invested huge amounts in R&D, creating new products, working a lot with institutes, research institutes, universities, not only in Greece, but also in UK and Italy. And we created a new generation of products that was okay. We start after the markets took over. Until 2013 in New York, there were not even scaffolding. Our people were there just discussing about projects. But we were organizing ourselves for the next generation of products, which now we supply the markets. And I think that necessity pushed to give all these products that we have now, and they are extremely high level.
Well, it's certainly impressive as we're watching the screen here and the various projects are rolling through. It's impressive to see the projects and the scale of projects that you're involved in, your company is involved in. And so what would you say as a Hellenic-based company has been your advantage going into these markets versus other competitors that are already in those markets?
I'll tell you why. First of all, Alumil is the world leader in sliding systems. Why? We are in Greece. Everybody has a patio, everybody goes out. You have to find solutions. Now, if you go to Greece, you will see a lot of luxury hotels built underground. That means you make a whole house, and you have only a sliding door. You have to go from that in and out, and all the rest is underground. So, I mean, you need a lot of research to find solutions how to do that with the sizes, with the other technologies, with the locking systems, with a lot of things. And this research leads us to crazy solutions. For example, we are the first one in the world that we have sliding systems is magnetic elevated. They don't move on rollers, they move on magnets, because now it's so big that and so heavy you cannot do it with rollers anymore. Or we have curtain walls where you produce energy. Okay, use special materials together with aluminum, and then you can produce energy from the surfaces. And this comes out of the necessity of giving solutions. And then we have experience. We make high-rise buildings in India, which are so stupid and so cheap that, we don't afford to show to any other part of the world. Or we make very sophisticated solutions because with time, in the beginning it was, okay, I have energy efficiency. It was one issue that we have to confront it. There, a lot of companies have progressed a lot. I think we are on the top. But then you have to combine security, fire protection, energy efficiency, ease of operation. And all these together, that's make the Alumil to be one step beyond than international competition. And just think that working around the world, in fact, there are 5 or 6 companies doing that. International companies. Maybe you can find somebody in Canada, no. But in US, that it's really big, but it's only in US. So, I mean, and this competition made us Greeks be more inventive and working harder, to stay at the top.
So those are some of the competitive advantages if you had to stay on top. Now, in terms of the challenges that you had making inroads into our market here in Canada, from the perspective of government, were there any challenges? What were the challenges? What sort of challenges did you have making the inroads here in Canada?
I mean, you've seen the buildings that we've done in Vancouver, exceptional buildings, very high engineering, difficult. It's very difficult to have a slider system open in the rain and all the weather conditions, because it's not like here in Vancouver that you have balconies and it's out that's difficult, okay? Because this is a stupid detail, but the water doesn't go out, go down, goes up as well. depending on the year. So you have to confront these situations. And these were difficulties, and the people that trusted us to give the solutions there, I mean, for us it was in the beginning, it was strange because a great company, no matter what we think of ourselves, and no matter how much we can prove what we can do, we are not easily accepted. I remember when we did the Google building, they put so high standards, there were only 2 companies in the world that could do the building, one German, one us. But we're Greeks, we're faster, you know? We did it much faster, and we got the project. They put the standard so high that there was not an existing system. So I mean that helped us also be accepted in the country, but it was very hard. We have to prove them. We have to make the prototypes, make part of the construction, make all the tests, because it was not only to comply with the specifications of the Canadian market that we do anyway. We have to go beyond that. And we managed. That took time. We risked a lot because we spent a lot of money before we've been accepted. But then we start doing 1, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Now you see Vancouver is Alumila.
It's incredible.
And we'll do that in Codaronda as well.
One day it's coming, right? Very soon. So, you know, the stigma you just talked about, the stigma with Greece, how has that played a role in your entry into various markets?
I mean, usually when we are talking about technology in fenestration, the Germans are number 1. Was number 1, now I don't know. But anyway, number 1. And they were easily accepted. Germany means quality technology. Greece means sun, beaches, civilization. For that, everybody are well accepted and are rewarded. For aluminium, okay, we were telling them, guys, we produce aluminium since 1960. We are one of the oldest countries in the world producing aluminium frames. But the industrial part of our Greece is not easily accepted. This is a problem. But what is one of our huge advantages that we have? Greece has a nice name. So when we invite architects from Singapore, okay, or from UK, or from Mexico. In Mexico, there are very fine architects, or from other parts of the world, they love to come to Greece. They come, they have fantastic food, they have the meze, the ouzo, the fish, everything. They spend the 2 time, we'll take them to the village of Aristoteles, then we take them to Alexander's the Great place. They walk by the sea, the weather is mostly nice. So it's very easy to bring them, and I take advantage of that. You know, have a full hospitality team and when they come, and then they see, and then they are convinced, because it's like, you know, it's like Christ, you have to touch it. When they come and touch it, then we take the order. That's simple as that.
That's amazing. I love it. So, you know, going back to the previous group with raw materials, raw minerals, how has the availability of resources in Greece helped or hindered your company's ability to grow?
I mean, when you have the raw materials, then the most usual is that the downstream goes together, okay? And that was the issue. Metal start producing the metal at that time as Pechiney, and we start taking advantage of the metal because at that time it was important. And then also they're using also the price policies to help us a little bit. So downstream was local. And because of that, you know, there was competition. And when there is competition, there is evolution. And that's how we used the existence of metal in Greece. There's a huge amounts of bauxite, okay? And they make it in alumina. And if we can go on solving the problems of energy, we can produce metal and can produce much more aluminum than now. The only limitation for Greece is, but we have the minerals, they are there. And that's a big advantage, and everybody knows that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things as I've grown up going to Greece. Everyone always talked I come from Nafpaktos. My family background is from Nafpaktos, and close to Nafpaktos, there's a lot of bauxite. And so when you speak of bauxite being readily available in Greece, is that resource being extracted at the level that you think is productive for the country?
Yes, I think yes, they take very much care. In the past, it was not so. When the French guys was there, they was not considering all the aspects. But just think, 30 years ago, environmental issues were not so hot. Okay, so you could bypass some things. But now everything is done with very, very high attendance to environmental issues, and I think that there's no problem in Greece with what they do with the bauxite, how they extract it, how they treat it or process it. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I know we're running short on time here, so I'm gonna maybe jump to the final question. As perhaps you can end with telling us a little bit about your aspirations of the company in the years ahead, and what you hope your legacy is as a Hellenic-based organization.
Alumil is operating in 68 countries. We have 32 subsidiaries around the world. I don't want to be big. I want to be the best. And that's what we're going to do. And you know, it's not only Greece. For me, it's Thessaloniki. You know, if you go to Hyderabad, they don't know Athens. They know Thessaloniki. Okay? If you go to Jaipur, the same. If you go to, I don't know, to Vietnam, and this is something that excites us. Not only me, but also the next generation, our children, that are always proud of doing things for Greece and for Thessaloniki. So it's not a matter of how much money we make or how big turnover we are going to make. We want to know us around the world that we are a high quality company that provides and delivers what it's promised.
That's amazing. So I think with that, our time is pretty much up. So I'm going to wrap it up by telling you that it's a privilege to finally meet you. I've seen your products, and we've all seen your products as we travel through Greece and worldwide now. And you and your company are making us extremely proud as Greeks. And for that, I think it's worthy of another round of applause to thank George for coming and joining us.
Just say that to others. What you can do for us is say to others, hey guys, in Greece there is a company that can deliver this good company, you know.
Well, that's just it. That voice is gonna echo loud and clear. So thank you very much again. And maybe I can ask Katerina to come up for the next session. Thank you very much again.
No, give us a moment, because apart from Alumil, I am the Vice President of the Thessaloniki Technology Innovation Center, which is a very important project. I would like you to know about it. Give us 3 minutes. We will show you what is it. In Thessaloniki, a group of businessmen decided that we have to do something for Thessaloniki. So we put our money, we gathered a lot of millions, and we went to the Prime Minister and we said, give us a piece of land, and we will turn it into an innovation center for Europe. And we'll bring all these companies. And all these companies that you heard about, Pfizer and others, they are in, they're helping as well. So our Prime Minister Mitsotakis said, okay, guys, I'll give you 760,000 square meters for free on the sea, next to the airport in Thessaloniki, the best place for villas, but we will turn it innovation as an innovation center. And we want to invite the people to come and invest there. Either invest there for the real estate of the business or for bringing high-tech companies. Already we started, there are about 12 companies, international companies, not Greek companies, that are coming in. But this is a very big place. It's a unique place, and it's so cheap that, I mean, it's a big opportunity. Just have a look to the 2 minutes video, and if somebody interested, just let me know, or in our embassy we have a lot of information about this Thessaloniki Innovation Center.
Do you have the video? Perfect. Okay.
What you see is us laying the groundwork for a fourth generation science and technology park. The latest meeting point of the world's entrepreneurship, innovation and academic excellence. On a sunny Greek beach next to the international airport of Thessaloniki, we are developing a habitat for 7,000 scientists and professionals. Habitat full with state-of-the-art laboratories, amphitheatres, meeting rooms, offices and hospitality outlets.
Έχουμε πανεπιστήμια τα οποία έχουν εξαιρετικά εργαστήρια, έχουμε ερευνητικά ιδρύματα σημαντικά, επιχειρήσεις εξωστρεφής που κάνουν εξαγωγές, αλλά δεν τους έχουμε φέρει ποτέ αυτούς μαζί, κοντά.
The foundations are laid for pioneering companies to relocate their research and growth departments here. Their brilliant minds working together for what matters most, the cutting-edge technologies of the future. Multinational tech companies, investment funds and VCs, Greek diaspora, digital nomads, startups, service providers. They know this park is their best choice. The superb waterfront location next to Thessaloniki's universities, international airport, seaport and exhibition centre, just a short drive away from Halkidiki, one of Europe's top summer destinations.
Η Ελλάδα ολόκληρη έχει ανάγκη και περιμένει την ολοκλήρωση του Κέντρου Καινοτομίας Thesintec. Όχι μόνο για το 1 δισεκατομμύριο περίπου επενδύσεις που βεβαιωμένα θα αποδώσει στα επόμενα 8 με 10 χρόνια, αλλά γιατί θα αλλάξει ριζικά και την Ελλάδα. Θα αλλάξει το παραγωγικό της μοντέλο από κρατικοδίαιτο και επιδοτούμενο σε διεθνώς ανταγωνιστικό.
Built by innovators for innovators, our science and technology park will open by 2026. What is now a great opportunity in a matter of a few years will be a landmark on the global network of high-tech innovators.
Well, thank you again, George. I think with that video, I think he may have just found a buyer, and you guys may have just seen that right firsthand. Anyway, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Hello from me too. I'm Katerina Soko. I'm also a director at THI Canada, and I'm delighted to be here for the third year in a row. And say that both content-wise and participation-wise, this forum is only growing stronger and supporting Greek-Canadian relations. So I would like to invite, please, to join us for a most interesting discussion on fueling dreams in the world that's losing faith. Mr. Byron Nikolaidis, he's the founder and CEO of PeopleCert, an award-winning entrepreneur. He's been awarded Entrepreneur of the Year 2019 in the UK, also by the European Business Awards and in Greece. And he is leading a company that provides a success story of how a Greek company can go global. And I'm delighted to be able to discuss more about it with him. So, without further ado, Mr. Nikolaidis, nice to be here with you.
Thank you.
It's an enticing title, Fueling Dreams in a World That's Losing Faith. PeopleCert provides certification for business skills that are very much needed in today's economy. Can you tell us a bit more about how the business skills that your company, your group of companies, I should say, is certifying people for, can change people's lives?
Yes. The value of certification, of any certification, is not the value of the paper. In essence, people get certification in order to fulfill their dreams for a better job, for a better career. So what we are doing as an organization is trying to help people to achieve their maximum, whatever they are capable of, not only the people, but organizations as well. That's why we say that we fuel the dream economy, because there are some papers around this, and people are dreaming of a better future. And what we see today, and this, what we're doing was before the election of yesterday, this generation finds things much more difficult than the previous generation, and even more difficult than 2 generations ago. They are angry, and they are dreaming. And certification is a way of fulfilling their dreams.
Can you tell us a bit more about what kind of certifications you're providing and what you find are the skills that people need for this challenging economy and workplace that we're facing?
Well, we as PeopleCert, we have close to 800 certificates. But if we look to big categories, there are certifications on business and IT, and certification on languages. We operate in 225 countries. People say, but there are no 225 countries in the world. Depends how you are looking at it, but if we put them on Google Maps, that's what I say, 225 countries. Essentially, you have 50,000 customers, organizations as customers. We work with 82% of Fortune 500. So if you write in a blank sheet of paper 10 names, any names that come to your mind, 9 of them are our customers, from Apple and Microsoft and Google and American Airlines and Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, to NASA, to CIA, to FBI, to American Armed Forces, Canadian Armed Forces, Royal Bank of Canada, just a few names. And we also work with 800 government organizations in 45 countries. Essentially, our certifications are changing lives. You see, to give an analogy with universities, we all know about the best universities in the world, right? The top 10 universities, depending which ranking you look at, is Harvard, Stanford, Columbia, Yale, Princeton, Oxford, Cambridge, etc. And why those 10 are the best? Because if you graduate from your universities, A, you find a job with a higher salary, and 2, because you get immediately a job instead of waiting for a few months. There is equivalent of this list on the certifications, the top 10 globally, with the same criteria. If you can get those certifications, you can find immediately a job, and immediately you can get much better payment. 2 of our certifications make in the top 10 list, ITIL and Princeton, to give an analogy. And we also are in language certification, competing with the Cambridge IELTS and TOEFL, and we are number 4 globally, yes, on language certification, out of Greece.
Super, that's impressive, and I understand that you're operating in both, obviously, given the number of countries, developed and developing countries. I'm wondering what's the difference in what kind of skills people need to break through these social and economic barriers in either case. Can you give us some examples about that?
In our particular case, the certificates are professional certificates. And because the world is becoming a smaller place, there are no significant differences between developing and developed countries, apart of the fact that developing countries, they cannot pay the price that the developed countries they pay. But we can see the same certifications being in Africa, in US, Middle East, Australia, New Zealand, South America, Europe.
So the pricing is different?
The pricing is different, yet we have 5
But you have
different prices.
5 million professionals already certified. By
And
People
we certify approximately 1 million people every year.
Oh, wow, okay.
And lots of thousands, tens of thousands here in Canada as well, right?
All right. I didn't realize, I have to say, with speaking to you last night, that PeopleCert was the first Greek origin unicorn with a current valuation of more than $1 billion US. And I got that from your website. I hope that's
Well,
correct.
we
Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Okay,
And how it all happened?
We are the first unicorn out of Greece. That was in 2021. Then the official valuation was 1.15 billion.
Okay.
Today our valuation is between closer to 3, I would say. We are growing, but looking from the financial perspective, the elevator pitch of PeopleCert is that in the last 10 years, our growth rate is on the average 34% per year. We're growing 34% per year. Our EBITDA margin is north of 60%, and our cash conversion is 90%, which makes us a quite valuable company as long as we keep those characteristics.
Mm. Do you have any lessons to share about how you take a Greek company global like this, like you have? Because we're in the business of expanding trade and investment here, and I think you might have some lessons to share with us all.
I'm going to repeat what my friend George has said. When we started this business, this global business, because similar story, we were a Greek organization delivering certification in Greece. ECDL was the first one that we started. In Greece, we have certified, by the way, 800,000 people on basic IT skills. 1 out of 3 young Greeks between 20 and 35 has been certified by us. And Greece is very small, it's less than 1.5% of our business. And the crisis came. And we had to do something and going abroad, and we cannot go with certification equals quality. In Greece, when you go outside, it's tourism and all this stuff. The only thing I want to add, you said, plus moussaka. I mean, so we cannot go with tourism, souvlaki, and moussaka globally. So we embraced a Greek identity, a UK identity. But the DNA and the heart remained in Greece. UK has very good reputation globally on quality. They have very good institutions, banks, financial lawyers, auditing companies, all. And it's a fair system. So we had this UK identity going globally. It was not easy. We had to fight inch by inch. Currently, today, we are 27 companies around the world, some of them the UK, some in the US. We have 2 companies in the US, in India, in China, in Turkey, Greece, Cyprus, Middle East, in United Arab Emirates. And we're still doing the same recipe, which is hard work, Greek DNA, the very famous Greek word that is not possible to translate, philotimo. The operational base is in Greece. And of course, in order to be a global champion, because in the areas where we operate, we are by far number 1, the leader, or in some cases number 2. You must have top quality and work very hard.
Embracing the world in a way,
Yes.
like globalization is supposed to do on its best. In that regard, how much can you tell us a little bit more about your operations? I understand you have a pretty big team in Greece as well. Is that right?
We employ approximately 1,000 people from 44 nationalities around the world. The operational base is in Greece, so if we talk roughly, I would say 2/3 of our people are based in Greece, and 1/3 is across the world.
And if I may ask you about your personal journey as well. I understand you were born in Constantinople, Istanbul, and you have dual citizenship as well, right? And I'm just wondering how that background of yours helped you realize the potential of going global in a way as a company? Because we have Greek Canadians here that can use their multiple identities in a way to excel in the world, in the business world.
Well, it was a very interesting journey. I was born in Constantinople. Both my parents were teachers. But they were teachers in the community school. So we were one of the quite poor families. I was a good student. Yes, I graduated from high school, Zografion High School, the famous one. And because I was a good student and we had very good teachers, really good teachers working with us, in Istanbul there was no such a thing as it's called idiatera mathemata. Our teachers, they're working with us day and night and the weekends just to help us go in the university, get to university without expecting any type of remuneration. So I was able to get into Bosphorus University, Boğaziçi University, probably the best university in Istanbul, and I graduated in 1981, went to Greece as an immigrant.
Mm-hmm.
Typical immigrants, the way we see here. And then I started I did different jobs. In 1987, I was headhunted by Merrill Lynch. Merrill Lynch was then the big conglomerate, and they wanted to open up the business of Turkey. So they were looking for someone, typical banker, well-educated, a bit presentable, a bit aggressive. But on top of this, you had to be able to speak Turkish and go to Turkey on a regular basis. For 6 months, I couldn't find someone. So after 6 months, a big boss said to the people who work in the office, guys, if you can find me someone, I'll give you $10,000 bonus. Back in 87, $10,000 bonus was a big number. So everybody started looking at Rolodex, etc. And one young lady that was working over there, she was married to one of my schoolmates. I was doing my MBA. And by coincidence, life is full of coincidences, we got married same day, the same church with 1 hour difference. And she said, I know someone. And that's how I started from Merrill Lynch. And within 5 years, from very poor, I became very rich, the other extreme. And all this because of the Turkish language. So if I can say it publicly now, when President Erdogan was in Athens last year, and we had a meeting on a number of issues, doing business in Turkey, instead we're doing with Turkish state some business. He asked the question, I heard that you have been very successful in your life, and the main ingredient was Turkish language. Can you tell me about this? And I told this story, I said, yes.
Indeed, and that's a strength, actually. That's a part of your unique qualifications that comes from your upbringing and from your dual citizenship as well, I would add. What made you turn into entrepreneurship, though, from a banker?
Well, I always wanted to do something myself. And at that time, I read a study. I was 31 years old. And it was a study at that time that got commissioned from Harvard, I think. It was talking about the glass ceiling on people. So the people that made it the top companies in the US, after the war, the CEOs, women were only 4%. 1950s. In 1990, 40 years later, the world was liberated, so things have changed, and they conducted the study again, expecting that this 4% was at least 10, 15%. The study found that after 40 years, still there was there a glass ceiling, and it was only 4%. So they tried to find out why this is not changing. And they found out that the critical time for the career of people is between 32 and 38 years. Those 6 years define the slope of the career.
If between 32 and 38 you go this way, you continue this way. If you go this way, you continue this way. And what happened between 32 and 38, mostly, women stopped in order to make children, have families. So the recommendation of the study was for the women, if you want to go to the top, either have your children before 32, and then you are with your career, or after 38. And I was 31 when I read the study, and I said, this applies to me as well. What I'm going to do between 32 and 38 is going to define my career, and that's why, although it was 1991, it was my top year. I was number one among 11,000 people at Merrill Lynch, high space, etc. I said, thank you very much. I want to change. And then I decided to go to become a ship owner. For 2 years, I was the shipping business. And then I changed course because both my parents were educated. I have an affection on the education. And I took the educational background and continued.
So I like to think that I'm a late bloomer, so I hope this age bracket has exceeded now to later years as well. And it's all in the mind, right? As long as you decide to make it, but wisely done at the time. Now, I'm to wrap this up, because we're between you and your lands. Is this in your line of work? Do you see any impediments in? And you've already told us that some of the biggest companies in the world are using your services and products. Are there limitations to entering or to the Canadian market, the US market, some of the more developed markets? And would it have been different if you were coming from Greece rather, from a Greek base rather than British base in entering these markets, you think?
Well, first of all, we are the market leader, both in Canada and US. I mean, almost all the big companies, I mentioned earlier, Fortune 500, 82% of Fortune 500 are working with us already. And those organizations, they don't care who is behind. The only thing they care is the product. Is it a good product? Is it solving real problems? And as long as we offer them real solutions, I don't see any problem. And now we are, by the way, some of the products that we use, they have been developed 40 years ago from the UK government. And then we acquired those products from the UK government and the patents and everything. So I don't see an issue as long as we do a good job.
Yeah, and given that we've all been through the Greek financial crisis as well and seen how Greece has recovered from that and how it's built trust again in the international markets, I would argue that even if there was a time during the Greek financial crisis that coming from Greece was a disadvantage, that's no longer the case necessarily.
I think you're absolutely correct. There were times that, I'm not proud saying this, but we had to somehow hide the Greek identity, not for any other reason, but because we thought that we're not going to pay them. Again, the same thing. I will never forget in my life that we were in a room for 5 competitors, and we had to pay 5,000-10,000 to one of the others because it was a common project, etc. We paid from abroad, and the money delayed for 1-2 days. And the people, one of those guys from one country, I'm not going to mention the name, was mocking us. Of course, I mean, what can we expect from you Greeks? I mean, you're never going to pay. You're all going to give excuses and bankrupt us, etc. And those type of comments really make you be like a steel and say, we are going to make those guys. We're not going to let those guys pass.
Resilience.
No way.
That's a Greek trait, for sure. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Nicolaides.
Thank you.
Lunchtime. Yes, please join us for lunch.